Hello, this is Travis for Sliver Surfer 1, and I am going to tell you about my favorite lenses in the world. This lens is the Tamron 60 to 300 millimeter model 23A. It is a great lens. I use this on my Sony a6000, my Sony a7, and I can also use it on my Pentax K5 and KX. The reason being, you can see here, I have my Konica to Nex adapter here, so that I can attach Konica lenses to my Sony, but this is an Adaptall lens, so Adaptall have a very special thing about them. Tamron in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even up to the 2000, made these lenses that you can change out the mount that was on them. This is a Konica mount. I have pentax mounts for this that work perfectly on my K5. They even have the contacts, the communication contact. It controls the aperture and communicates with your pentax as well. So how do we put this on? Well, what you got to do is turn it to the widest aperture, which is 3.8 on this. Okay, and you line up. There's a mount register right here. It's in green, and on this there's a mount register here that's in green. You line it up, make sure this little tab is in the slot, see, and you twist it on. And it's on nice and tight there. Okay, and then you can place it on your camera, and it's nice and snug. This is the focal length of 60 to 300 millimeters. You have your f-stop range of 3.8 to 32 at 60 millimeters. Okay, and at the 300 millimeter range, you have f5.4 to about 45. So what we have is it's 3.8 wide open at the wide end, and f5.6, you can see the blue here, when you're at 300, so it corresponds. So it's only one stop between wide open and telephoto. The optical construction of this is 11 groups with 15 elements. The minimum focus distance is 1.9 meters, but you can decrease your focal distance with the macro. There's a macro setting on here where you push in and rotate, line these lines up, and now you can see here you have a macro reproduction of 1 to 1.55, which is really good. Most macro lenses around this era would only do 1 to 2, but this one does 1 to 1.55, which is pretty special. And what it also does is it shoots at a minimum distance of 30 centimeters. The filter size for this is 62 millimeter filter. I'll just get this back out of macro. You slide this in, push it inwards, and rotate it, and you're back in regular mode. When looking for a model of this, make sure that you have smooth focus. Some can be a little bit more difficult. This one's a little stiffer, but it still works well. The different parts of this lens is it's got, start from this end, it has a bayonet style lens hood ring. This is that it normally comes with. You notice it's round and it's not a tulip shape or a petal shape. The reason being is when you rotate it, the lens hood rotates with you. We have your operating ring. You only need one hand to zoom and focus. When you focus, it's about 120 degree turn to focus. You have a distance scale, which runs on here from 1.9 meters to infinity. The infinity is positive. Okay, it's set to positive, so you can adjust for temperature changes, or because of the mount, different mounts you get on here. You can go a little past infinity if you want to correct for that. You have your depth of field scale right here. And basically what this does is it will guide you to how much of your picture is in focus. So say you're 5 meters away and you're shooting at f5.6, you're gonna have a depth of field that's about 25 centimeters on each side, so 50 centimeters will be in focus. What we have over here is the zooming scale, so it shows you where your zoom is. So that's at a focal length of 60 millimeters, 100 millimeters, 135, 200, and 300 millimeters. You can see the scale there goes from 60 to 300. That's a 5 times zoom ratio, which is really good. It would be considered super zoom at that time. Back when these were out, most super zooms were pretty terrible, but this one is far from that. You can see what we have here is, you see a little orange line here and a little blue line here. Well, what that is your aperture index. So if you're at 3.8 at 60 millimeters, at 300 millimeters you'd be at 5.6. okay, so it's one stop from the widest to the telephoto. It's one stop up. So there's your Adaptall mount index here. That's where you line up with the Adaptall mount. This lens isn't too difficult to handle. I have used this all day long on all my cameras, my Sony a6000, my Sony a7, and my pentax, and I've never had any failures of my mounts. What you have to do when you're doing manual photography is support the lens, not the camera. Okay, this is what I mean. Handle your camera like this, not like this. Okay, so use this handle here just as leverage, okay, and support most of the weight with your left hand. That's just how it's supposed to be done with manual lenses. This lens weighs 870 grams or 30.7 ounces. That's close to a kilogram. It's almost 2 pounds worth of lens. The things I like about this lens is it has great build quality, mostly metal construction. It's got a nice clicky aperture ring. It is very well coated. The coatings on this are fantastic. It's got the B-bar multi-coating on it. It doesn't flare much. If you're shooting into the sun, yeah, you can lose some contrast. It goes kind of flat, but it can make quite a nice effect. On the other hand, when you're out in the field with it, you can quickly switch over to the macro setting, just as easy as twisting. Okay, it's got a pretty good minimum focal distance of 1.9 meters away at 300 millimeters. That's pretty darn close for a 300 millimeter lens. It's pretty fast too. Like 300 millimeter 5.6 is not, depth of field is going to be razor thin at 1.9. It has beautiful bokeh at 3.8. It's very sharp. It'll resolve easily on digital cameras. When you're looking through this lens on a mirrorless camera, it's really easy to focus. It just pops. The parts that are in focus really pop. When you're wide open at 3.8, the center is very sharp. The edges are not as sharp, but they're still pretty darn good. Let me talk about where this lens excels in the sharpness. So at 60 millimeters, okay, watch me as I change this. We go great, great, fantastic, great, great, good, good. Okay? So that's where the sharpness is on it. When we're at 300, you have to ignore the 3.8. Right? We'll look straight over at this, the 5.6. So we'll go 5.4. It's really good. At f8, it's great. At f11, it's great. At f16, it's really good. f22, it's really good. f32, it's good. We'll go to about 150, and we'll just say this is f4.7. 150 millimeters is excellent. You go to 5.6, it's excellent. F8 is excellent. F11 is really good. F16 is good to really good. F22 is good to really good. And 32 is acceptable. Okay? So that's my opinion of where the best is on it. Corners are best on this at f8 to 16 at 60 millimeters. At 300, the corners are best at f8, and they're pretty consistent at all the other pros and cons. Okay, the pros to this lens: build quality is excellent. There's no zoom creep on it. It's got a fairly short focus throw, okay, so you don't have to over rotate. It's got an excellent macro setting. It's fast at 60 and at 300. It's not the fastest at those apertures, but the thing that makes up for that is at those wide open apertures, it has great sharpness and contrast, has very good color. You can find the mounts for these really cheap. So the things that I like about it is the image quality. The IQ is fantastic on this. It has a nice depth of field display here. It's a nice thin lens, easy to focus. The things I don't like about this lens is the fact that they didn't make a tripod ring. I wish they made one, but you know, if as long as you hold it properly, you don't run into any real issues. And I rarely use a tripod anyways, but it would be nice to have that option to use a tripod. What you can do is you can get a Sony adapter that has a tripod mount on it and use that, and then that alleviates the problem. I don't like the fact that the whole barrel rotates. The reason why you don't want a barrel that rotates is because you can't use a pedal style hood, but this hood still works pretty good. In general, it's a fantastic lens. The reason why I love this lens so much is it does a lot of things really great. It just has a few minor annoyances, but the greatness of this lens far outweighs its flaws. And the flaws are very few and trivial. Looking for a good birding lens or a good, a hiking field lens or a good air show lens. I use this one for air shows a lot. You can't really beat the price of this. That's another thing. People don't sell these for that much, but there's so many of these around. They were an expensive lens back then, but now they sell for $50 to $100, and I don't get it. I don't know why something like this would sell for so cheap. You're not getting these off of me though. Even if they were to sell for a lot, you're still not gonna get this out of my collection. Even though I have 3 of these, I'm keeping all 3 of them because I can use them on 2 different cameras and get a huge array of pictures from APS-C and full frame cameras. I will show you some samples up next. go to bed. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.